Welcome back and thank you for staying with Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. The state capture inquiry is set to begin anytime soon, and all the inquiry chairperson is awaiting for are the terms of reference from the President's office.
Justice Raymond Zondo is awaiting the terms of reference to kick off the Commission of Inquiry into state capture.
The law states who is the authority to deal with the terms of reference. I, as chairperson of the commission, will just wait for the terms of reference to be given, and once they are given, and if they stand, and like if there is no challenge to them and so on, I will work with those terms of reference.
Former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela set a tight deadline for the inquiry to wrap up and recommend remedial action.
The time frame is 180 days, and it's not clear whether the 180 days is from the date when the appointment of the commission was made or from the date the commission is able to start its work. But whatever the date is, 180 days is not a long time.
Meanwhile, the right to set the highly anticipated and contested terms of reference remains President Jacob Zuma's alone.
The president, who is the president of the country, who must appoint the commission of inquiry, whoever that might be, must make the decision and must do so. The president is, of course, perfectly entitled to consult anybody that he or she wishes to consult. The person who leads the commission has no say over the terms of reference. He cannot widen the scope. He has to stick to the terms of reference as provided by the president.
Ultimately, the buck stops with Justice Zondo to do justice to the inquiry, which touches the foundations of democracy.
I will investigate anybody and everybody, no matter who he or she is, if in terms of my terms of reference, I'm required to investigate them. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter where they are from. This commission will do its job properly. We owe that to the people of South Africa. I would not take this job if I had any fear of investigating anybody.
The stage is set for the biggest inquiry on the local political scene. The jury is out on Justice Zondo making heads roll. Bureau Report, ANN7.
Tutuzane Zuma and former Trillian shareholder Salim Issa have both emphatically denied that they will turn state witness in the state of capture probe or are planning anything of that nature. On Sunday, the City Press reported that unnamed sources claimed that Issa was considering lodging an affidavit with Eskom-led prosecutor advocate Tutuzelo Vanara. Salim Issa has rubbished the claims, dismissing them as rumors. Tutuzane Zuma has also rubbished the claims in recent articles that he could be planning to turn state witness. And speaking to ANN7, Salim Issa says he has never contacted Advocate Vanara for lodging any affidavit, as is reported in the media. He says the Judicial Commission of Inquiry will give him an opportunity to clear his name. Salim Issa says he has been victimized by rumors and is willing to participate in any process to separate facts from hearsay. And responding to a recent article in the Financial Mail, businessman Tutuzane Zuma rubbish claims that he could turn into a Section 204 witness in the state of capture investigation. He adds that he would be happy to avail himself of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry or any court process to clarify on allegations against him. And joining us on the phone line, we have James Self, chairperson of the DA's Federal Executive, Zanele Luana, deputy national convener of Black First, the Land First movement. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. Mr. Self, I believe your time is rather limited. Thanks for joining us. Just in terms of the state of capture, terms of reference that is now that we are waiting for, and the judge saying it will be pretty much as part of the Public Protector's report. We'll get to Mr. Self's response. I believe he's not quite with us yet. Zanele, just in your view, we've just heard from Chief Justice that it would be confined. At least that's what I'm reading. It would be confined to the state of capture report.
If that's the case, we are definitely going to contest that as the Black First, Land First movement, because we believe, and there's overwhelming empirical evidence, that state capture in this country goes way beyond the Gupta family, goes way beyond corruption allegations against the sitting president of the country. State capture in this country includes Johan Rupert, the Oppenheimer family, the banks, white monopoly capital, and how they've monopolized all sectors of the economy, and how Johan Rupert, Oppenheimer family, Maria Ramos of ABSA continue to terrorize the economy, use their economic muscle to put pressure on government to take particular decisions that do not dismantle the status quo, which still remains unjust to black people in this country. So if Judge Zondo is saying the terms of reference are not going to look into the corrupt activities of white monopoly capital, we are definitely going to reject it, and we are even prepared to go to court and interdict that whole process.
All right, well, we'll explore your statement you released earlier on what action you will take should the terms of reference for the state capture judicial inquiry be limited to the Public Protector's report. But we are joined now by James Self, a chairperson of the DA's Federal Executive. Mr. Self, thanks for joining us. I believe your time is constrained. Good evening to you. Now, with all more voices criticizing the limited view or terms of reference of the probe, do you think that President Jacob Zuma has the room to maneuver to expand the scope of the inquiry?
No, I don't actually think so, because it is now established law that the remedial action of the Public Protector is binding on organs of state unless set aside on review. Now, the President has tried to review those terms of the Public Protector's report, and the court rejected it. So, as far as we are concerned, the terms of reference of the Commission need to be that described by the Public Protector in her report, and those are fairly limited. The big danger of extending the terms of reference is that the inquiry becomes so wide that the Commission could putatively spend years and years and years tracking down all types of alleged state capture without getting to the real problem, which was the systematic theft of state resources that went on during the last couple of years. And that needs to be exposed, and that needs to be interdicted.
But you don't think, I suppose, obviously we'll have to wait until the terms of reference have been published and accepted by both the judge and I suppose yourselves. The expanded inquiry, though, has got space in the sense that we've seen the skewed imbalance and inequality in terms of wealth and the monopoly capital that persists. You think that there is merit in that argument, that we need to investigate the concessions that were made in CODESA and the illicit flow of cash and wealth and resources to bring those to book as well?
Well, that's a different inquiry for a different day. I mean, there may very well be merit in having such an inquiry, but that's not what the Public Protector dealt with, and that's not what has to be implemented. The longer we delay on this particular inquiry, the more evidence has the potential to disappear, the more people will forget what went on, and then the real culprits will go scot-free. So, in our view, the President is acting very irresponsibly in not defining the terms of reference and allowing the Commission to get going with its business.
All right, Mr. James Self, thanks so much for your time, Chairperson of the DA's Federal Executive. He does have other commitments and couldn't stay with us longer, but we appreciate your time. Adil Nchabeleng, Transform RSA President, joins us on the line. Adil, thanks so much for your time. By all indications, it seems that the terms of reference will be confined to the Public Protector's report. In your view, do you think that this is the only other alternative that there is in front of the judge? Hello? All right, Andre Duvanage will also join us in a little bit. The phone lines are acting up. My Queen Zanele, that gives you then the opportunity to look at the statement you released. You said, should the terms be limited or myopic, you will go to court. Is that a real threat, or is it something that you are trying to sensitize the judge to consider?
I'm sure the people of South Africa know that the Black First, Land First movement does not make empty threats. Whatever we set ourselves to do, we are definitely going to do it. But also, I think it's very important to make it clear once again to our people to say that real corruption in this country starts with land dispossession, right? Land that was taken from black people by a white settler minority in this country. They go on and capture the economy, mining, and all sectors of economy to make sure that they generate profits for only themselves, while the greater majority, which is black in South Africa, continues to be at the margins of the economy, and basically we are slave labor. We know that throughout apartheid and even post-94, how the state was captured by a white settler minority to pump money into companies such as Sanlam, to pump money into Bankrupt that time, which is Absa today, to pump money into companies linked to Anton Rupert, who is the father of Johan Rupert. Johan Rupert, who controls, or rather produces, almost every household product that we use as the black majority in this country. So really, we need to be taken serious as the black majority in this country, and not this lie that corruption and state capture should primarily be reduced to the Gupta family and the president. We are thinking people, and we should not allow ourselves to be undermined like this. White monopoly capital should be investigated. Otherwise, it's going to be the same song of constantly using the Gupta family and the president as scapegoats to what? Cover up corruption of Johan Rupert, the Oppenheimer family, the banking industry, and all sectors of the economy that have been monopolized by a few individuals who continue to terrorize and benefit from state-owned enterprises and many other services from the state.
All right, let's get a view from Andre Duvanage, political analyst. As a Duvanacha or Duvanage, Andre, good evening to you and thanks for joining us. And what is sitting in front of Chief Justice Zondo? What would he have to consider in light of our history and where the wealth still is located?
Well, to just bring into the context, I agree with Mr. Self and what Mr. Self said, but the previous speaker is, according to my analysis, completely out of context. We are talking here about a very specific investigation that is legally defined within a specific context, and you cannot open this up for everything that happened politically since 1652 or wherever. If that is the context, maybe we must even investigate the Mfakan and what happened with regard to Shaka Zulu and Dingaan and many other people. I believe this is a very specific investigation. It should deal with the context of state capture, and that is the frame of reference.
All right, but in light of what the president is saying, that they will allocate the resources, because we know that the Public Protector's Office had been constrained in that regard, and to give him the manpower to expand, it may not even be from 1652 for that matter, it may be in terms of reference from 1994, to look at all these transactions and concessions that were made. Would you still object to that scope of the inquiry?
Well, I will object, because that was not the intention of the Public Protector. The Public Protector wanted to do a specific investigation If there's a need for other investigations, then the public protector must deal with them in their own way. The problem with this bigger context is you are going to lose focus. You cannot deal with all the corruption that happened. If we talk about one very big episode in our recent history, it is the arms deal, and we know what happened in this regard. So I think the situation is too complex at the moment. We need to deal with this in a very focused context, but if necessary, they can open it up. But again, we need a specific focus and a specific mandate, and that is not on the table at the moment.
Okay, Mr. Duvenage, stay on the line with us. Zanele, he says you've missed the mark and it's out of context. What you're referring to, this is essentially about the state of capture report, and that's where it should reside.
First and foremost, South Africa is a black country, and we are not going to be told by beneficiaries of white corruption and land dispossession on how corruption in its totality should be investigated in this country. We know also that the state of capture report that was compiled by the former public protector, which is Advocate Thuli Madonsela, was purposefully narrowed down to the Gupta family and corruption allegations against the president to push an agenda of regime change and to push an agenda of white monopoly capital and an agenda that suits the interests of Johan Rupert. We know Thuli Madonsela today has been rewarded by the Stellenbosch mafia, Johan Rupert at Stellenbosch University, with a job there. We also, as a movement, have constantly, during her time as the public protector of the country, we said, we are not saying do not investigate the Gupta family. We are not saying do not investigate the president. But don't leave white monopoly capital, which continues to benefit from the state more than anyone else. And she arrogantly refused to expand the terms of reference in this country. So if we talk about state capture, let's leave apartheid. Let's talk about post-1994. Let's talk about the evergreen contracts, right? From the apartheid into post-1994, that benefit white companies in SAA. Let's talk about long-term contracts in Eskom, where white companies continue to be the large beneficiaries of tenders in most state
let's get a response from Mr. Duvenage.
Enterprises.
Yeah, so, I hate to interrupt you, but in the interest of time, let's get a response from Mr. Duvenage. And also another question, we've heard rumors, or rather reports in the Sunday press, the city press to be precise, that Mr. Salim Issa and Tutuzane Zuma were allegedly going to turn state capture, or rather state witnesses in the state capture inquiry. Mr. Duvenage, if you can respond to those.
Yes, maybe first a brief reaction on the previous comments. We are not a black country or a black nation. We are a multiracial nation with different components, and we cannot reduce everything to a racial conflict. I believe that is ideologically driven, and that is inaccurate, and we cannot blame the Rupert family and the so-called Stellenbosch mafia for the context of state capture referred to in the report of the public protector. But yes, you refer to specific individuals turning state witnesses. Yes, indeed, it's going to make the case of the public protector a lot stronger, and I believe there are big reasons for concern on the side of President Jacob Zuma, as well as the Gupta family, as well as other people involved in this. But the bottom line of a constitutional state is that the law must decide, and we are now entering a legal phase and a legal process, and I believe in the independence of the judiciary. So let's take this case to court and let's look at what the outcome is going to be. But I have serious concerns that the outcome will be very negative for both President Jacob Zuma as well as the Gupta family, as well as many other interest groups in this context.
Yeah, you talk about a constitutional country, but we know that in the court of public opinion, there have been prosecutions done already. Mr. Salim Issa and Duduzane Zuma refuting those reports in the press that they are likely to turn state witnesses rather. And so there's a lot that we need to separate from what hearsay and facts are going to be. Mr. Duvenage, I mean, the court process in itself may not necessarily reveal what a lot of people assume is likely to be the outcome.
Yeah, but what is the task of a court? The task of a court is to assess a certain situation or context in terms of legal principles and make a decision in this context. It is not it's not necessarily aligned with the public opinion in general. That's something else. That is political. We are now talking about a legal context and a legal focus. So it's all about legal interpretation in terms of the South African Constitution and related laws and legislation.
Yeah, and the timeframes that the Chief Justice also referred to, 180 days, saying for such a complex inquiry may not be sufficient. Either way, I suppose the expansion of the terms as well may extend that particular period. Ideally, how long should it take, even if it were confined to the state of capture report?
Well, I believe you may be quite correct that it's going to take a lot of time to do a proper investigation in this regard. 180 days may be a very short period, but let's give the investigation time to consolidate itself, and let's get feedback after the 180 days, and if necessary, they can extend the term of that investigation.
All right, thanks so much for your time. That's Andre Duvenage, a political analyst, and we continue in conclusion with Zanele Lwane, BLF, Deputy President. Just in the, we've seen the public protector saying that she would like to see the Gupta leaks included and also the additional cases perhaps that are running parallel to this would be able to investigate state of capture further. Do you have confidence that all of these parallel processes ultimately will get to a wider scope when it comes to state capture?
If the inquiry is not going to dig into the corrupt activities of white monopoly capital and the agents of white monopoly capital, it's going to be a big joke, and we should really hang our heads in shame as a nation. We also know that the most corrupt in this country, who are white and they are agents of white monopoly capital, present themselves as crusaders of anti-corruption and all those kinds of things. That's why they are insisting. I'm talking about civil society organizations. I'm talking about the opposition parties. I'm talking about the church. I'm talking about the DA and so many other people, right, who are constantly insisting that the terms of reference should be narrowed really to the Gupta family and whoever else is involved in that. Because we know that this is being used to shield corruption of white people in this country. 17 billion, the Steenhoff saga. Why are people so scared for this to be uncovered? Johan Rupert, when Nhlanhla was removed as the finance minister, and he summoned senior ANC leaders to say, if Pravin Gordhan is not appointed as the finance minister, I'm going to destroy this economy. And we saw that within 2 days in 2015, we lost about 500 billion. What is it that they are hiding?
Yeah, but the judge would also have to satisfy in his mind and legally whether the expansion of the terms of reference is not deliberately to delay the investigation of the state of capture, including the president and the Gupta family. How much merit is there in that? That, you know, if you make it wider, ultimately it may not even come to any fruition. There might not even be any result that is meaningful or comprehensive.
We are already talking about a compromised process where the former public protector, Advocate Thulima Donsela, refused point blank to implicate white monopoly capital into her investigations of state capture. Now we are saying that here is another opportunity to rid the country of all kinds of corruption. Because if you say the Gupta family is corrupt and the president is corrupt and no one else should be investigated, are you not saying corruption is black in South Africa and therefore the white settler minority have not done any crimes to wrong the people of this country? It's historically wrong and it should be rejected. Investigate the Oppenheimers, investigate Rupert, investigate Bidvest and their friends. They must all come to book and people must go to jail.
All right,
Simple.
I'm sure we'll know in good time where we stand with the terms of reference for the state of capture inquiry. But to our guests, thanks indeed as always. Zanele Luana, Deputy National Convener of the Black First, Land First movement, and Andre Duvenage on the line, a political analyst joining us earlier. Thanks for your viewership and thank you for watching. We'll see you in a bit.